Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. It is Friday, 2:30, and it's our special time when we come on the air because we didn't make the show on Tuesday. But there's so much going on in the world today, and it's really important that we bring forth these types of shows to have this type of voice in our communities, Latino voice for Latino concerns, culture, and contributions. And so today I've got a special guest who is going to be talking about her life experiences, and that has to do with something that happened over 40 years ago. And she's going to talk about that because she organized a protest this last week with two other individuals to talk about exactly what had happened and why she's speaking out today in 2026. So please come into the room if you got a concern or a question. Go ahead and bring it up because we'll try to address it, and we'll talk about what's happening in America today. So don't go anywhere. No te vayas. Come on into the room for Mi Gente on Air.
Welcome to Mi Gente on Air on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online WSGW.com. Now, here is your host, Larry Rodarte.
Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. I am your host, Larry Rodarte, and I'm happy to be with you here today. It's Friday. We are in mid-January, and what is going on, America? That's the only question I can ask. I'm not one to get political. I'm not one to, handle those types of disagreements that are happening in our country or what have you. But I find myself more and more because of this platform, I have to speak my mind. I have to speak about what's going on in the United States of America, the country that I was born into and have been raised, assimilated into, and I never thought we would be where we are today. And today I have a guest who is kind of in the same boat. We both have some affiliations with Youth for Understanding, which is a company that has foreign exchange students that come to America. And she was a foreign exchange student many years ago, over 40 years ago. And she's going to talk about an experience that happened that makes her speak out today in the climate of our country. So please help me welcome Miss Laura Estrada Jackson.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks for being here today. And, we're living in some tough times, aren't we?
Tough doesn't even describe it.
Yeah, I understand that. And I have a listening base here with Mi Gente on Air, and many of you all know I've been doing this for 5 years now, and it is geared towards Latinos, but many non-Latinos are listening as well. And sometimes, I'm put in the predicament where should I say this? Should I say that without offending somebody?
Absolutely.
But here I am, Mexican American in Saginaw, Michigan in 2026, and I am very proud to be an American, but I can't just stand by and act like nothing's happening to my community.
Exactly.
And so I think you're in the same boat. Tell me a little bit about your background, Laura.
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Saginaw. I went to St. Mary Cathedral School from fourth grade, graduated. And when I was a sophomore, my Spanish teacher said, Laura, I think being an exchange student would be really good for you. Talk to your parents, see if you can go. Got it all ready to go. That summer of 1980, it was the 1st of August, and I was going to Montevideo, Uruguay for 1 year. And all the exchange students from all around the United States met in Miami. So from there, we went to Paraguay, where I turned 16. And then I went to Montevideo, where I lived the rest of the year.
Hold on one second. 16. That's pretty young to be an exchange student.
Yeah, I did my whole junior year there.
Wow. What an experience. I was a little bit older. I was 20. I went to London, England.
Oh,
So we both have this exchange experience. And before you continue on with your story, tell me why you think it's important that any student has an exchange experience.
because it makes the world a smaller place. And it also helps you to respect other cultures.
Exactly.
Because honestly, every person on the planet, all we want is respect, dignity, job, roof over your head, food, happiness, joy,
Yeah.
and whatever that is.
Yeah. And it's funny because here I'm asking this question. We just basically met. I am not scripting Laura, but it's like she's saying the exact perfect answers, right?
Oh, thanks.
No, I just say that for my listeners. But the thing is that, I feel the same way. I think it's really important if you get a chance to go to another foreign country during your formative years,
Yes.
16 to 20, what have you, because you see the world in a whole different light once you get back. It's like, wow. It's like the
very
light.
eye-opening.
Yeah, it's very an eye opener. The light goes off, and I think you have a lot more empathy for many people, not just your own people here in the United States.
Absolutely. And you also get to learn about another country's struggles.
Yes.
And their history and why they are the way they are.
Yeah, so that segues into what your story was. Go ahead and tell us.
Okay, so I lived when I arrived there. It was a fascist regime, and it was fairly new. It was only like 3 or 4 years into this change. And when I got there, my host father took me in the backyard and explained to me what a fascist government was, to make sure that I don't get caught. And in fact, don't speak about the government or your government or anything when you're out in public. And be careful who you talk to. Because now this country has been known for torture, kidnapping, murder.
Wow.
People just disappearing.
And it's surprising that your parents would allow you to go at such a young age to Uruguay.
Yeah, I don't think they really knew what was going on down there.
Yeah.
Because it was already an established fascist regime.
Yeah.
So it wasn't in any real danger, kind of, we thought.
Yeah. Go ahead with your story.
Okay. I've only recently been telling this story. I've held it for almost 46 years now. And the reason it came out is I'm working on a campaign, somebody who's running for Senate. And we met at a town hall just by hapstance. And then later, I met her again through my son. And she goes, "Oh my God, your story." I said, "What story?" She said, "The one about where you lived and what happened to you. It's important. People need to know the story." Okay. So then we organized the vigil for Renee Good last Saturday. It's kind of wrong. My voice is a little yucky. And thank goodness we were able to get some speakers just like within 24 hours. John Ayala and Angel Gomez. Yeah. And a young girl. I think her name was Chloe Johnston. Yeah, she spoke. Anyways, so they're like, "Well, why don't you speak?" I said, "Okay." So I explained people who I was. So what happened to me one day was I was riding my bike. I was coming home from the library. And I was about, 5 or 6 blocks from my house. A cop car pulled up in back of me. They got out. They dragged me off my bike. They put a hood over my head, threw me in the back seat, took the bicycle and threw it on top of me, shut the doors, and took off. Now, I grew up in the city, so your little city thing, I'm like, okay, I got to count how many turns and how should I just kind of figure out where I am and don't freak out because that's what they want me to do.
Right.
So after about an hour, I just kept thinking to myself, what's going to happen to me? They know who the host father is. I mean, the resistance was new when we got there. And I was like, I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that fear of being snatched and thrown and going somewhere where you have no idea. When I started with LA, when I saw that on the television, it brought it all back to me. I started shaking. I was like, wow, I can't believe I buried that so deep. But I wanted to concentrate on the positive things that I took from my experience. But this experience, I think, is what I needed to do then to understand what's going on now and to be a voice for the voiceless.
Yes, yes. So when they kidnap you, basically, you're 16 years old. You're a girl from Saginaw, Michigan, a U.S. citizen. Did they understand at that point that you were an American citizen that they had just kidnapped?
I kind of think so.
So it was more of like a fear tactic.
It was a fear tactic.
I can't imagine any regimen that would take an American citizen at that time. Today it may be different. The way America is looked upon now across the world because of Donald Trump.
Right.
But in those days, in the 80s, it was a different time. And I think America was respected and was the real, force that we have been through many years and still are. But it's surprising to me that happened to you. But you mentioned your host father. He was an attorney?
Yes, he was an attorney. And every Sunday, we, like clockwork, we'd have brunch. And then he and I would go into the backyard and we'd sit next to each other and have a drink. And he would just whisper to me what fascism was, why they had to stop it before it got in too deep. Because if it gets in too deep, it's hard to get out.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. And I never told him what happened to me because I didn't want him to get scared.
Yeah, yeah.
Because then they would have called the embassy, blah, blah, blah. But I figured they weren't going to hurt me because if they found out that an American citizen had been kidnapped, it probably would have started some type of international incident. So I think it was just their tactic to scare my host father and the people he worked with.
Well, good thing you had your wits about you. I mean, at 16, because you could have been deathly afraid of what was happening to you. Something that we never would have thought of in the 80s happened to an American citizen, let alone a girl from Saginaw, Michigan, right?
Absolutely.
So when did you actually tell somebody? Or did you never tell anybody?
I never told anybody.
You never even told your parents when you got back home?
Never told them.
Wow.
Never told them until these ICE attacks. It's just like it.
Yeah.
And that I met my best friend down there. I had two best friends. My first best friend, Julia. She's from Wisconsin, and I just recently told her, and she's like, "Why didn't you tell me when we were down there? And where was I?" I said, "Well, you were on vacation, but I didn't want you to get scared."
Yeah. So we try to protect those around us that we
That
love
we
and
love.
care. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. And so we have seen the LA raids, we've seen the Chicago ones, and it seems like Minneapolis is coming to a turning point in our country. And now I understand they're also going into New Orleans and San Antonio, which
Oy.
it's gonna be a really bad situation, I
Yes.
think, personally. But what was it that made you speak out? Was it the killing of Renee Good? What was it that made you speak out and organize that small protest in Saginaw?
It was about a year ago. I was at a town hall in Buena Vista, and it was with state representatives trying to figure out what our concerns were. Mine were. So I was sitting next to a woman, and she was going to talk about the cuts to childhood education, SNAP, and all that with young people. And I was actually going to talk about the cuts to Medicare and Social Security. But I started to read the room, and I got up and I said, I don't know who said this, but I remember someone once saying, if you have something important to say it even though your voice shakes. And my voice was shaking because I said, I'm here to talk about immigration. And it's like you could feel the energy in the room change. They're like, uh-oh. And so I didn't tell my whole story, but I told them I was in a fascist regime for a year. I knew what it was like to have to get off the bus, and there's guys there with AK-47s walking up and down the streets, and that they could blow your head off just because they felt like it.
Yeah.
And that people weren't allowed to speak their minds. You know, everything was censored. The only freedom we had was of movement.
Wow.
But my American friends and I figured out a way to gather every once in a while. But anyways, I digress. So I said, as I look around the room, I pretty much said what I said Saturday. We are a nation of immigrants.
Yeah.
The only people who aren't are the indigenous people who are already here. And the people who were brought here against their will. We all built this country. But again, it hurts me to know that there were so many people who fought so hard for our right to vote, our right to be heard, and all of this is going on. And I start to slowly see these slidings into fascism. They're very subtle.
Yeah.
But they come. And next thing you know it's there. It scares me. I'm terrified. And like I said before, never in my life did I would think that I'd have to carry my original birth certificate and marriage certificate wherever I go. And my husband and I travel to Cleveland every 6 weeks because I get treatment for an illness. So lately, I've been really scared in the car praying that nobody pulls us over.
Right.
Be- who's going to save us after what we've been seeing? And I think all these other things that Trump is doing, like as of today, he said he was going to lower drug prices and lower this and lower that. And he was going to put more money into mental health,
Healthcare.
and this thing with Greenland. I think those are all shiny objects to get our attention away from what is actually going on in this country.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think so many are falling for that, and you're exactly right. And what comes to my mind is that I know, like, I'm third generation Latino in the United States of America, and my immigrant uncles who came here in the early 20th century, they fought in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle Pedro Rosas, he got the Purple Heart because he was shot down in Normandy in World War II. And I get goosebumps saying that now because I always said that with such pride and everything. And now I feel like, we're being targeted in such an ugly way and villainized, and that it's like people forget that we are descendants, you and I, and many that can be targeted by ICE if they came to Saginaw.
Yeah.
We are the descendants of these heroes.
Absolutely.
Heroes in America that, they may not have been born here, but they became U.S. citizens. They fought for this country. And so many Latinos were decorated in the wars, many. And yet, we're the ones who are being targeted specifically in this immigration raids in this country because one man basically has turned the tide on how we are looked upon in this country and has villainized who we are as a people. And, they talk about immigrants and they talk about migrants, but it affects all of us.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if we came here legally, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, or if we came illegally. It doesn't matter. We're all being targeted now.
Right.
And so to my listeners out there, I want to just say, how are we supposed to react as Mexican Americans who were born in this country when we see our community being targeted in such an ugly way? And now, we've seen what happened in Minneapolis. I think that was a turning point.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
We're going to go into commercial real quick. Great discussion here with Laura Estrada Jackson, and we'll be back here on Mi Gente on Air. Thank you for being with us here today on Mi Gente. I'm a little bit heated. Great conversation. And I don't want to be that way. I don't want to be somebody who speaks out for attention or trying to, it's not my nature. But I know that I have to use this platform in order to do so, to have a voice, because I don't see anybody else talking about it too much. Now,
nobody's talking about it.
Right.
And I felt it was my responsibility.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
To put a face.
Right.
And an emotion. Because the woman was helping me. She was holding my hand and I was trembling and I was crying. Because it brought it all back.
All that feelings.
Those feelings. The being frightened. Yeah. Terrified. The nightmares I had. It all came back.
Yeah. When we talk about nobody's talking about, we're talking about in the media as much as, they're definitely talking about it on social platforms, social media platforms, and that's a good thing. And I've been, targeting some of the ICE raids that have happened that have been very vicious and ugly, simply because I want the world to see. And hopefully that, the tide will change in their thought processes in regard, is this really the right thing? Is this what I voted for? That's the people I'm targeting,
Absolutely.
And so, we are here on in Saginaw, and we may not be a community that has raids going on like they do, of course, in Chicago, Minneapolis, now in San Antonio, like I said, and I believe New Orleans is going to be the next big city that they're targeting. Um, but we can't just stand by and see what's happening.
No.
It affects us. It affects us mentally. It affects us as American citizens, and it affects us as Mexicanos, la raza in
La
this
raza.
community. Yeah, yeah,
That was actually
yeah,
when I was in Uruguay.
yeah,
Whenever we were at a party, and I was going, "Viva la raza!
yeah, yeah.
Viva la raza!"
Well, before we continue, we're going to go back into the show. We had to pause for commercial break, but we're going to go back in the show. We're going to find out exactly what happened to you, what was the end result, so my listeners know, and where do we go from here?
This is Mi Gente on Air on WSGW.
Welcome back. Welcome back. I am your host, Larry Rodarte, and I'm proud to be here today as an American citizen who is talking about current events. And my guest today is Laura Estrada Jackson, and she's an individual who had an experience many years ago when she was a foreign exchange student in Uruguay. And she is going to tell us a little bit more about what happened and what has motivated her to be a voice in our community talking about her experience that she rarely talked about for 40 years, but feels obligated to talk today in this immigration crisis that we have in America. Laura, tell us what happened in the end result of when you were kidnapped and snatched away as a foreign exchange student in Uruguay.
Okay. After driving around, they were talking amongst themselves, just nothing really. And I lived across the street from a beach. So they pulled up right by the seawall and got out, pulled me out, threw me, and left. So I just picked myself up, dusted myself off, got on my bike, and went home. There weren't a lot of people at my house. They were all very, very, very busy people. And so I was there a lot by myself. But I think the maid kind of had an idea of something happened. And I was like, no, no, está bien, está bien. But yeah, I can't be silent anymore. And I know this has happened to other people. I
Yeah.
know it has. And it is scary to talk about. I just think it's important to be aware of your surroundings. We have to protect each other, and not just Latinos, the other communities.
Yeah.
We have seen online on the news doctors, regular people saying, "ICE, get out!
Yeah.
You're not taking our people.
Right.
They have every right to be here." I after the town hall. Okay, the person sitting next to me was Serenity Stalick. And she was holding my hand, and this elderly lady came up to me and she was asking me, "Well, aren't you concerned about all the fentanyl that's coming here?" I'm like, no, I'm afraid of the ICE agents.
Mhm.
Okay. And she caught me off guard. I really didn't know what to say. You know, I wanted to say, "Wow, your white privilege has really blinded you to what's going on." I've always talked to my friends about race if it came up. And a lot of them didn't think there was any racism here in Michigan. I know.
Yeah.
Well, I would say you wouldn't know
Right.
because you're white.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, my generation, your generation, back in the 70s, the 80s, we were very much so the minority.
Mhm.
There were very few. I went to Bridgeport. There were very few Latinos there, um, and we kind of accepted the way life was in
Right.
those days.
We did.
It wasn't as blatant as it is today. I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we may have felt it, we may
Mhm.
have overheard a conversation
Mm-hmm.
that made us feel less second class citizens, maybe.
Absolutely.
Um, but we went forward. We continued on. We assimilated as best we could. And then there came a time, I think, where it was really cool to be Latino in this country.
Right.
You remember?
Yeah, there was that little sweet
Yeah,
spot.
that little period of time where you had, I think, the attention from Selena's passing,
I was
even
just
though it
gonna
was
say
such
it.
a sad time for us.
Uh-huh.
She broke down many barriers and doors. Her and
Absolutely.
Gloria
Gloria
Stefan.
Stefan.
But the world fell in love with Ricky Martin, Enrique Iglesias, Mark
Mhm,
Anthony,
mhm.
Shakira, Hips Don't Lie.
Mhm.
And there was a
J-Lo.
time. Yeah, there was a time. And then that tide, it went into the food. Our food was loved as well. It still
It
is.
still is.
It still is. And it just uh, you know, irks me to hear today that there are ICE agents who were eating in a Mexican restaurant and then went and continued on in their job thinking nothing of it. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's those types of things. But the thing is that it was a time where we accepted who we were. Maybe we did accept ourselves as less simply because we were in such the minority. But there were so many civil rights movements in our country that, from the 1960s, the late 60s, and I can actually remember the
Mhm.
Detroit riots and all.
Mhm.
And we made progress. We made progress as a nation, to get away from the 60s, where African Americans and Mexican Americans couldn't drink from fountains. We couldn't
No.
eat in restaurants with the rest of the people. We had to eat in the back.
Yep.
We had to stand in the back
Yep.
of the churches. And this isn't something that I experienced myself, but my father told me what he did as a US soldier.
It
you know?
happened to us when we were little.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure it happened to me when I was little, but I don't remember that part. But I was very fortunate, growing up and all, but I heard some of the stories. And, it was because of my education, I think, that propelled me to have a voice with Mi Gente magazine,
Mhm.
to be able to always, try to really be our greatest cheerleader in our communities, whether it was, with the magazine and now with this show, trying to propel the idea that we make great contributions in this country. We always have. We have been the backbone of this country. Our immigrant
Absolutely.
grandparents, my parents, my father, especially as a migrant worker.
Mhm.
So, it's a tough time. It really is a tough time. And I think today you and I have seen what is happening, and we would have never thought this would happen in Saginaw or
Never
in the United
in
States.
my life.
Yeah.
Because let
It's
me tell you,
shocking.
when I arrived back home in Miami, I did kiss the ground.
Yeah.
I was so happy to be on American soil.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't that something? You kiss the ground when you arrive back.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. When I was in London, England as a student, as an exchange student there under the Michigan State University's study abroad program,
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was during the 1984, during the Los Angeles Olympics. And I remember studying at the University of London, doing my humanities studies. And there was a bunch of British students that were in the corridors where we would all watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, they were playing the Olympics so much. And I just remember walking in all the daily. It was a time when Russia boycotted the Olympics.
Okay.
You remember? So we
I
didn't
remember.
have the competition of the
Of the
USSR
Russian- right.
at the time. So America was winning all the gold.
Right.
So every time I seemed to come into that TV area, they were playing the national anthem of the United States of America, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would stop in my tracks wherever I was as I entered the room, and I would put my hand on my heart,
Mm-hmm.
and I would stand there all proud as an American citizen,
Right.
right? And all the British students would gather whatever they had papers in, they would all throw it at
Oh.
me because they were so sick of me. I was kind of like mocking them and saying,
Right.
"Hey, I'm proud American," because we kept winning, Mary Lou
Right.
Renton and all that. And so, it was such a time as, being a proud American in Europe at the time. I returned to Europe many times since then. This last summer, I was in Italy for
Mhm.
2 months, and the pride isn't there like it used to be. And it's because the world is seeing who we are with this leader
Mhm.
who is dangerous, not only for us as American citizens, but the world.
He's very dangerous.
Yeah.
He scares me.
Yeah. And so, it's a tough time to be an American in a different soil. And, there will be so many who will say, well, go back there, go, whatever. But no, this is home, and we're going to have a voice, and we're going
Yeah,
to,
we were
talk
born
about
here.
it. Yeah. We were born here.
I'm just second generation.
Yeah.
My grandfathers came over in the late 20s because of a GM.
Yeah.
They heard we don't even know how he got here. And I had asked my mom because we didn't speak Spanish at home.
Right.
And while I was studying and getting ready to go, I asked her, why didn't you teach us Spanish?
Mm-hmm.
She said, I didn't want you to have the accent.
Yeah.
She goes, we as a family decided we were not going to teach our children Spanish. We did not want them to have an accent because their skin color was enough discrimination.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, great. So then I go and learn a dialect that's only spoken in 2 countries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing about being here in America. It's really unfortunate that they don't promote multiple language.
Absolutely.
In Europe, the kids over there 3-4 languages.
South America too.
Yeah. In America, speak English. You're in America, and that's the mentality that is unfortunate, because I think it opens a whole nother world when you do speak another language.
It does, and I think a lot of people don't want to speak another language because they're afraid they're going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
But a lot of people speak English and make mistakes. I'm not going to make it fun of you.
Yeah.
I may say, oh, but it's said this way. And I like it, when people ask me what this means, because it's a slang.
Yeah.
But the type of Spanish I speak, I don't get to speak on a regular basis because my best friend lives in California. So, she's really busy, and she's an attorney, but she's gone back. I haven't been able to go back.
Mm-hmm.
But she formed a extremely tight bond with her host family, who were fantastic.
Yeah.
They were so welcoming to me. They're just wonderful people. And so she has gone back to visit, and she says, it's not the Uruguay that we knew, but the food's still good.
Right. Yeah.
Democracy. I mean, it's great. It really is.
Yeah, I remember early on in President Trump's first term, where there's the polarization that has happened between everybody in America now, left, right, whatever. But I remember talking with a family member who, I remember saying that, and this is probably during his first term, so this would have been 2016 to 2020,
right?
Where I mentioned that, I feel like it's headed towards a fascist government, and it's similar to
Wait, what?
Nazism. I remember
Absolutely.
saying that, and she like chuckled it off and said, "Oh my God, Larry, and you call yourself a journalist?" I remember her saying that. And the funny thing is at the time, I had gone to Berlin. I was in Germany, Berlin, because I had exchange students from Germany who are coming to the United States for a visit.
Mhm.
Um, but I was in Berlin, and they have the Holocaust Museum in
In
Berlin.
Berlin.
And I went in there, and I remember, and I've said this on my show before, I was pretty shocked. I remember because right when you walk into that museum, the first thing you see on the wall in big letters, and it's in many languages, I believe, but I remember reading, "If it happened, it can happen again."
Of course they can.
Yeah. And I remember thinking that, and that was always in the back of my mind,
Mhm.
that is this what's going to happen to America? And look where we are now from, say,
Yeah.
Trump's first term to this term,
Yeah.
where they're snatching people off the streets.
Mhm.
We just learned of today an immigrant who was killed, another one, because he was basically choked to death, just like George Floyd, in the detention camp. And so this is
You
the
mean the
fifth,
concentration camp?
the concentration camp, the fifth immigrant who has been killed this year, and we're only on January 15th. Can you believe that? So it's here,
It's here.
and so many people are just ignoring it,
They're
continuing
laughing
on.
it off because they don't think it can happen
Yeah.
here. And it can, because kind of is. If it walks like a duck,
Talks
quacks
like a
like a
duck.
duck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just saying. But I just felt compelled to say, you know what? I know what it's like to live in a dictatorship, and it's not fun.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
No, it's not. We were able to forge friendships, and I had an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Well, except for that one, but still, maybe that experience is preparing me for what I'm supposed to be doing now.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a proponent for exchange students. I've
Absolutely.
had many throughout the last 10 years. You said you've had exchange. Isn't it
Mhm.
funny that we both experienced
Yeah.
a foreign exchange program while we were young, and both have had exchange students,
In our
at least
home.
20 or so between us,
Yeah.
that have we welcomed to Saginaw, Michigan. And
Mhm.
the experience that, as a host family, as they call us, as a host father, host mother,
Mhm.
the experience that you get
From
from those
them.
students.
Ah,
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
one son, he's a surgeon, and he he was from Germany. And he's just such a great guy, and he's growing into this wonderful man. And I just remember the only thing he wanted me to send him wherever he was Kraft macaroni and cheese.
Yeah. Isn't that so American?
That's all
Yeah.
he wanted.
Yeah. And my two that are coming today,
Hmm.
Marco and Marino,
Hmm.
I know that one of the first things they want to do when they get to Saginaw is go to the Bringer Inn.
Yeah.
They love the Bringer Inn.
That's American right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. So they love, it's really fortunate for any family to experience, I think, exchange students. Because like we said earlier in the program, you really, it opens your eyes to the world.
Absolutely.
Different cultures, different foods. I was very fortunate that I have traveled to Europe, and I have visited and vacationed with my
Hmm.
foreign exchange students' families, and
Hmm.
I consider them my family now.
Hmm.
When I go, like when I went to Italy this summer, I spent about 2 weeks with Guglielmo's family.
Hmm.
Gulli, anybody who was out there may remember him here. He intended Swan Valley, but it's really nice to have that home base, because you get an experience where you're just not a tourist,
Right.
and you get to see from their perspective their city, which is Rome, and in the
Hmm.
case of the Germans, Hamburg. So it's really a beautiful thing, and I would encourage anybody who is considering a foreign exchange student to welcome them in your home, because
It's
you benefit as well as a host family.
absolutely, because you also gain their family,
Yeah.
because their child is living in your home.
Yeah, and it's funny that to me because and not funny, but it made me smile because you said our son,
Mm-hmm.
and they call me their host dad, and I think it's funny because I've never had kids of my
Mm-hmm.
own, and so you really get that experience as well as a father figure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in my case, a father figure, and it's a beautiful thing to share your culture with one another.
It really is.
Yeah.
And South America is so beautiful.
Yeah. And I think your exchange students, probably like mine, had the benefit of also not only having the American experience, but also the Mexican American experience. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, his favorite place to eat was Farlito when it was open on Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Yeah, that was his
Yeah.
favorite. It was his favorite place to eat.
Yeah. And so like
All of them, actually.
Really?
Yeah, all our
Wow.
students loved it there.
Yeah. And my exchange students have helped make patitos at Cinco de Mayo. They've made
Yeah.
tamales for the tamale taste off. They really got that Mexican American experience, and they experienced Dia de los Muertos with me.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so it was really cool, and I think I would say, yeah, you got yourself a real winner here with the family that they picked for you. So. But well, I just want to say thank you, Laura, for speaking out. Thank you for being that voice, sharing that experience. It was an ugly experience, but like you say, I think it really made you a stronger person to speak out today
Absolutely.
on what we're seeing here in America. So thank you for being with me on my show today. And what would you say to anybody who has an experience that possibly you feel could speak out like you have?
Do it. Find a platform, talk to somebody, tell your story. No matter how old you are, no matter how young you are. If you have a story, tell it. Now, it is very, very important. We all need to hear each other's stories.
Right. And like you said earlier, we need to take care of each other.
Protect each other.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Laura Estrada Jackson, community activist here. Never wanted to be right, but now finds herself in the midst of being an American citizen in America in 2026. So thank you, everybody, for being with us.
Thank you, Larry.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Laura, for being here today. And we'll see you next week here on Mi Gente on Air. All right. Thank you, social media. Thank you for those who have been here and who have left comments in the room. This show will be on social media platforms on Facebook. You can actually watch this at any time during the next 30 days, I think, is when they remove it off of Facebook. But also the shows are on YouTube, and you can look them up there as well as on Spotify. So I encourage everybody to do so. Share this show today as we talk about what's happening in our country. We can't just go on a show like this and just ignore what's happening to our community. So again, thanks everybody for being here today, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully on a better topic next week, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or we'll continue on. We don't know. We'll see you.
We'll see.
Hasta luego.
Ciao.